Okay, hey, good morning, everybody. It is an amazing Thursday morning. I was up bright and early watching the rocket launch that failed. It never launched. But today, we have something even more amazing for you to look at. And this is the amazing Mary Wong. That was the worst introduction I've ever done, Mary. I'm not going to lie.
We all have those starts to the day sometimes, don't we?
Mate, you just got to go with it. That's what I reckon.
That's exactly right.
Thank you for joining us, Mary. Look, and tell us what it is that you are that lights you up. What sets you on fire? Not necessarily what you do for a job, but what really lights you up. What makes you so passionate?
I like to call myself a kindness crusader. The thing that really lights me up is seeing people being kind and being nice. Dare I use the word nice? I have a friend who says nice. Ew, who wants to be nice? But yes, like your shirt, being a good human. Like we have a choice in this world about how we live and about how we treat other people. And in any given moment, regardless of the circumstances, we have the opportunity to make a decision about how we're going to behave. And we have control of our behavior, not anyone else. So that's the thing that lights me up, is seeing people make that effort to be good and kind and helpful to other people.
Yeah. And you know what? Like, especially at the moment, because obviously with all of us being forced into isolation, and I know it's changing now and we're starting to come back out of it, but the increase in social media and online interaction, I mean, as if online bullying and kind of being mean and everything else wasn't bad enough. I know that that's escalated. Like, I just don't, it actually blows my mind. I don't understand how people can just be mean for no reason. Like,
things are coming really to a point. It's like that pimple waiting to burst at the moment. There's just so much pressure inside these little microcosms that we live in, because we've got all these other stuff going on around us, and we're not finding our way to communicate without bringing in all those outside forces when we're bringing it in. And that's where the problem comes, because we're all reacting rather than responding. And it's really
there's ways to be. If you're like, look, I mean, I tend to steer away from like sayings like, if you've got nothing nice to say, then don't say anything at all. Like, I'm not a fan of that. Like, I'm just going to put it out there. It's not my jam. And because
I kind of noticed that.
What? Sometimes nice is not a requirement. Sometimes you need to say what you need to say. But yes, there are people, I mean, there are ways that you can get your message across and communicate with people in a way that can be respectful, not just kind to the other people, but kind to yourself. And
yes,
and you talk a lot about that, don't you, with your connection work?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, there's and Hayley, you know, there are things going on in the world that we have to speak up about. Bad things happen when good people stand by and just let them happen. We cannot stand by and be quiet when the wrong stuff is going on. We just can't. And, you know, you had a situation yourself just very recently, and this morning, just as recently as about an hour ago, I was reading something on social media going, and my ears were starting to steam, and I was going, I really need to have a rant about this. And we do.
Can I ask?
Oh, those poor children. Yesterday was such a dark day here with the poor little Willow, and then there's two more intellectually handicapped teenagers they found, and it's just horrendous. How does this happen? People have to know. How can people stand by and let something like that happen and not speak out is beyond me. But that's because I've never been someone who didn't.
Sorry, Mary, just let me interject on. No, you're right. On that, I want to, because I love kind of like delving like a little bit deeper. I want to know why people do that. Do you think it's because we are so disconnected, and now you see people are more willing to stand by and film something as opposed to get involved and actually do something? Why is that?
Yeah, I know that was horrendous what's happened in America as well with that poor man and the police kneeling on his neck. I mean, there's so many things all at once at the moment, and it's really building up. I think there's a combination of things. Everyone in this world has their baggage, has their stuff that they've lived through, and has their conditioning. We've been taught, we've been trained. It's not your circus, not your monkeys, just keep out of it. There's a degree of not my circus, not my monkeys that we need to put in our life. And there are times when we need to just go, you know what, it might not be my monkey, but I can't stand by and watch that monkey being treated that way and do nothing about it. It's morally wrong. We are morally obliged to do something when the wrong thing is happening. We cannot stand back and ignore it. So a lot of people don't quite know where to make that distinction. A lot of people live in fear of what the repercussion would be. And I can see in America when that was going on, why some of those people wouldn't have just jumped up and tried to do something. I mean, those guys are armed and they're standing there doing something to this man that's obviously reprehensible in front of a group of people. Do you think they're going to stop if you're the person that jumps up to do something? You're in fear of your life. You know, when adrenaline takes hold in those sorts of situations, sometimes you're simply unable to act. Your body just freezes and you just can't. So there's lots of different reasons. It can be fear, it can be conditioning, it can be training to stand back and not get involved. It can be just not knowing how to, because some people just don't know how. They don't know what to say or how to say it, or they think they're going to make it worse.
Well, do you think that maybe people are jumping into, instead of actually just being reactionary, because again, there's a lot of education, like you've got a plan and everybody, like a lot of people, where am I going with this? But in our space, especially in the business space, there's so much emphasis on planning and kind of having a well thought out plan. Do you think it's disempowering people to a point where they can't be reactive? Because there's so much negativity around being reactive, like reactive isn't a good thing. It can be such a great thing for so many reasons.
A bit of reactivity well placed is a very, very good thing. But if you're somebody who's going to react and blow up about the littlest thing, I actually tell my son this. I told my son this when he was about 12 because the F-bomb dropped when he was about 12 one day, and I was like, oh, God, how do I deal with this one? And I said to him, mate, let's think of the F-bomb as the bazooka. Right. So you take your pistols out, you don't take your bazooka out when it's just a single little tiny thing. And you save the bazooka. And when it is something that you really, really, really need to blow up about, that's when you use it. Because if you use it constantly, all the time, people don't pay any attention to it. And we're all becoming numb to it. We're all, because it's used so constantly now, with, you know, if this, if that, it's all over the place, and no one's bothered by it anymore much at all. But if you don't use it, if you personally don't use that word generally in everyday conversation, when it does come out, people go, whoa, that person never says that. And they know you really mean it. Yeah, they know that you've taken out the big guns for that one.
Yeah, see, I'm on different sides of the fence for that, because I was speaking with Annette this morning, texting with Annette this morning, that language can be used in such a powerful way all the time. See, I have a different view on that. And when you drop an F-bomb, you can still use it in your everyday. I mean, I probably drop the F-bomb maybe 50 times a day. Might be more. I have to check. Actually, when you get an F-bomb counter in our office, because it's not just me. Sometimes I don't view it as, and this is, I think, is part of the issue, Mary, is that the F word, I think, is perceived as an aggression. And sometimes it can just be emphasis. And therefore, it doesn't need to be this big, huge thing. And it doesn't have to be this big deal, but just respected as a word for emphasis rather than aggression. And I think it's just been, have perceived that way, that it is a part of, like, it's got to pack a punch. It's just like, well, that's an aggressive term. Can't we just have it like as a way to express? What do you think?
I totally get where you're coming from. I think that there are loads and loads and loads of words available to us in the language, and I don't use all of them all the time, and I certainly am not perfect. I use the F-bomb myself on occasion, and sometimes when it's really not necessary. But we have options. We have options, and I just personally find that if I use it in a space where I really need the big guns, people really go, whoa, she meant that, and they pay attention. And sometimes in this world of noise, where there's noise everywhere, there's distractions everywhere, if you really need someone to pay attention, maybe you want to keep that one in your arsenal for that. I don't, it's personal. It's personal. If you're comfortable using it all the time and you find that this doesn't do that for you, then that's entirely your choice. 100%. My choice is to keep it to myself and use it when I need it.
Oh, there's so many people that I would like sit up and listen to that don't swear. And there's plenty of people, and I think maybe what you're trying to say, Mary, it's all about not judging people and acceptance, because people are like, oh, well, you can't just like accept everybody. Where does it stop? Where do you draw the line? It's like, well, you just have to make sure that you're ticking boxes, that you can see that people have got a genuine intention, that these, like, I think it comes down to intention. I really do. And that's obviously then you can have, again, and it requires mutual respect, or having respect for someone and being able to accept their opinions without having to try and change them or whatever have you. So there's a conversation going on at the moment in the Obsessed With group, and it's gotten a lot of attention because I was genuinely interested in swear words.
Actually, I saw the question. I was going to comment on it, and I got called away when I was about to comment, and I meant to go back and comment, and it was something similar to that. It was just my experience that, in my experience, when I save it, it has a lot more power. But I have so many people who I know very closely and work with very closely who use it every second sentence, and that's fine, because, as you say, there's no malice behind it, there's no energy. It is really about the story that we ourselves put behind the words that are being used. And I find that, because I do a lot of training with people about speaking, and I always say you've got to speak to your audience, not speak at your audience. Speak to your audience, to their sensitivities, to their level of understanding, and to the language that they use. If I'm talking to a group who use the F word every second word and think that I'm goody two shoes because I'm not using it, then I maybe need to. It's just something that we need to be aware of, is that to really connect with people, the language that we use and the way that we use it needs to align with the people we're talking with.
Well, this is, I think, is part, especially people that have children and grandparents, and where they just have this disconnect and unable to communicate because they're so staunch in their views and like, no, like, I won't have swearing. It's just like, but we're not saying that you should compromise your morals and values, but maybe you should meet people where they're at. And it's about forming deeper, more respected relationships. And it's kind of like what you're basically saying is, this is my view and you must bow down to my view. And I think it just causes an energy that doesn't go anywhere, and then it becomes resentful and resentment.
It's almost an arrogance when you push your view so firmly on people that you're not even prepared to listen to them. That's almost the point of arrogance. And I always think that you've got to be sort of centered in your ego needs to be centered, because if it's too far one side, you're a doormat. If it's too far the other side, you're an arrogant a-hole. So you want to be somewhere in the middle, so that you can actually connect more deeply with people and really get some good stuff happening, some really deep relationships.
And Mary, like, it's so good because, like, and sometimes you can put yourself out there. I did it recently. There was a commenter about the rant that I've blown up for on social media about,
and quite rightly so, I might say.
Yeah, 100%. So somebody commented, and I just interpreted the sentence wrong, right?
Yeah.
It kind of got into this kind of, I was like, what? Some of the stuff she was saying, like, I was a bit confused, but it felt like aggression. And it's probably because I was in such a heightened state of passion and kind of, I was like, I feel like probably I was on the defensive because I'd actually been attacked by 11 other trolls that eventually got me banned for no reason. And I have no clue why people do that. But anyway, my point is, I could have just left it there. And when I walked into the office, I said to Natalie, I sat down and I said, you know what, how bloody ridiculous. How can people not? And then I said, and this one person came on, and as the words came out of my mouth to explain it out loud to somebody else, I just went, oh, hang on.
Yeah, that's not what they meant.
And literally, instead of just leaving it there and going, oh, shit, who gives a shit? I went back onto the thread, found the lady and explained what had happened. And I said, my bad, I'm really sorry. It's just quite difficult sometimes to, interpret what's through text because I can't hear your tone of your voice.
Yes.
Like we're doing now, Mary.
Yes, because your vocals and your body language have a huge weighting on what it is that you're saying. And when we're doing it with text, we don't have the benefit of the vocals or the body language. So we have to be really super careful with the words that we use. We even have to be probably a little bit more explanatory of what we're saying than what we normally would say. You know, I might just say, oh, yeah, I think that's a bit of rubbish. With that tone of voice, you know, that I'm just saying, oh, yeah, I just think that's a bit of rubbish. And I'm not bothered by it. But if I was to write, I think that's a bit of rubbish on a Facebook post, and there's plenty of them at the moment where I could actually write that, that would come across of me being terribly aggressive. Because the person reading it, who's already primed because they're sharing something that's controversial, who's already primed, is going to go, there's another one, they're having an attack at me. And it's not. I was going, well, I just think that's rubbish, but that's all right. You're entitled to your opinion. And that's what my vocals say, but you haven't got the benefit of that bit. So when you're actually putting it in text, we've got to put, but you know, you're entitled to your opinion, but I don't agree with it. There's nothing wrong with saying that. Good grief, if we all agreed with everything, how boring would this planet be?
Mary, could you imagine the amount of wars that have been started? I mean, in all seriousness.
True. Absolutely. You know, I personally have had times when I've done it too, where I've just gone kapow because somebody said something and I've gone, oh, that's just, you know, and lost it with them. And then had to pull myself back and go, well, hang on, what if they meant something else? And then I go back to them and I go, can you tell me more about what you're actually saying there? And it turns out that we're actually on the same side. On the same side of the argument. We're not disagreeing at all. And it's really interesting that in so many cases, particularly with wars and things, I mean, let's face it. If the people in charge on both sides, I'm just trying to get both hands in screen there. If the people in charge, I was like, hang on, where am I? If the people in charge on both sides actually want the same thing, why is there a war? Because in most cases they do. And in that gap in between, there's that possibility. There's that potential to find peace. There's that potential to find an agreement that actually keeps everybody happy. And how amazing is that? And simply, and there's been cases where it has happened, where they've had talks and the talks have sorted it out. But simply through having talks, through examining where each party's at, finding the common ground and working in that space in between. That's what makes a difference.
Well, that's what true connection is. You know, people talk about connection and like as though it's something that, you know, like if you're actually, everything is about connection. Everything is about communication and connection. And like, you just have to be aware, like when you plug it literally, like, and look, obviously it's Wi-Fi because we don't like literally plug into each other. Well, we do, but not, that's the wrong show. But but when you share energy through the microwaves, like human Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, it's so important and so powerful.
It is.
It is.
It really is. You know, when I do, like I said, I do a lot of training and speaking, and I do a lot of work on feeling the energy of the room. And it was very interesting when suddenly everything went online. And here was I sitting there going, oh, I don't have the energy of the room anymore. But it was amazing how quickly I learned to find the energy of the Zoom instead. Because it really, you still get it. You still get that connection. You don't have to be in the same room. And it really does awaken you even more to the possibilities that exist of this connection that we can all have, regardless of where we are on the planet, that we can still have a really deep, meaningful connection with someone without being in the same room, and we can still feel their energy. You feel their energy through reading their body, through reading their words, through, you know, listening to the way their voice works, all of that. You still feel it.
Yeah, and look, I'm preaching to the choir because for me, I think the only thing that this happened, like the pandemic, and we talk about it because it's the most recent huge thing that's happened. But for me, all it's done really is just prove that we are so much closer than we believe.
So much closer, and yet so far apart sometimes. And that's where I get really frustrated. It really has brought home to me just how important this human connection and this ability to have conversations with each other in a way that's respectful and in a way that examines and finds that middle ground can actually make a difference to our world and make a difference to the energy around us.
Yeah.
The thing is that when we get angry and when we get, angry, upset, all of those sorts of emotions, when we hold a grudge, the only person that we hurt is ourselves.
Yeah.
And if we don't look after ourselves, how can we look after other people? If we have nothing left to give, we can't help others. So I have this belief that humans are basically good creatures. All of us are perfectly imperfect. We all get it wrong sometimes. That's totally okay. It's totally okay. But basically underneath it all, we're good people, but sometimes we behave terribly badly. And it really is about understanding when we've behaved badly, being open to reflect on ourselves and recognize where we've gone wrong. And I go wrong every day of my life. I go wrong. Please don't for a minute think I'm perfect. I'm far from it. But it really is about going, man, I got that one wrong. Okay, how can I rectify this? How can I sort this out? How can I make sure that doesn't happen again? Be aware of what I'm doing and make sure it doesn't happen again. Because to me, that's most important.
See, but do you think that that's a teachable quality that you're talking about there, Mary? Because for me, I think there's a lot of things that kind of come into just like people that actually have strong senses of empathy and things like that. Because if you're talking about, someone that's got like a full-on narcissistic personality disorder that just don't really care, and they're like, well, I'm honest. At least I'm honest. It's like, well, you can still be an honest asshole. So
yes,
you can be an open and you can be authentic, but all of these things. And I think it's just misconstrued. And because they're hot keywords, right, in marketing, I'm authentic. It's just like an authentic asshole.
Yeah, authentic. It's like saying I'm honest. Trust me, I'm a used car salesman. It's like, and I'm sorry, apologies to any used car salesmen out there who actually are honest. I know there are some of you out there, but when you've got to tell people that you're authentic, then you're not authentic. Yeah. Authenticity is something that shines through without you needing to tell people. Just like honesty, it shines through without you needing to say, you know what, I'm honest. I've had a situation in my life where someone's done the wrong thing by me and they're out there telling people that I've done the wrong thing by them. I'm not going to carry on about it because I just go, people find out. It's all right. The truth always comes out in the end. So you just be quiet about it. You just go, no, that's it. Let it go. Move on. Get on with my life. Live in alignment with what my beliefs are, with what my values are, and keep going and keep doing and being me and doing what I'm right about. What I know I'm right about.
Can I ask, Mary, because is that something you've always been though? Because I know for me, like as I get older,
I learn a lot of.
I'm 42 now, and kind of like as each year goes on, actually as each moment goes on, I kind of just have like these little like electric light bulb moments where I've gone, holy shit. So I've always been me, but there's next level me, always next leveling. Like people like me and go, oh, you're so wise. I'm like, yeah, but I haven't always been that way. And it does come with maturity. Would you agree?
Absolutely. When I was 42, so you've just said you're just over 40 now. Yeah, when I was 42, I was so far from where I am now. I'm now 55. So 13 years ago when I had my baby boy, I was a mess. I was an absolute mess. I actually ended up suicidal about 2 years after he was born. And I got severe postnatal depression, and I got it in conjunction with a past trauma and having to deal with past trauma. And I was totally and absolutely 100% of everything that went on and had gone on in my life. That didn't mean that I wasn't me. I was still me, but I tried desperately to prove myself to people always. I people pleased to the point where I didn't exist anymore. And yeah, it nearly did me in. It nearly destroyed me. If I had continued to live the way that I wouldn't still be here. I had to level up. I had to continue to learn, and I had to continue to grow. And life it's all about growth. It's all about learning. It's all about growth. I couldn't communicate. I was a terrible, terrible communicator. And very, very reactive. You could say anything at all to me and I would totally lose it. They're having a go at me, and more often than not they weren't. They were just trying to give some constructive feedback and say, hey, have you ever thought about maybe doing this, or maybe not getting so upset when people talk to you and tell you that your hair's pretty today? That's what people say. If they say your hair looks really nice today, why is it always horrible?
Why? Yeah, exactly. What are you saying? I'm saying you look good today. But I mean, there is a huge difference between talking and communicating. It is a huge. People go, yeah, I don't have any problem talking. It's like, yes, but there's a difference between talking and communicating.
Yes, it's what you said earlier about skimming across the surface or going down deep, and you said you like to go down deep into things. Communicating is really about examining, that's a good word. Examining and going down deep. Yeah, and being, oh, thank you, Brittany. That's beautiful. Brittany's made a comment about vulnerability. And that's really beautiful, because that's actually what I was just about to say, and being prepared to be vulnerable and show people that other side of yourself. Because when you do that and you go down deep into those communications and share into those conversations and share what's really important, and be prepared to ask questions and get to know the other person as well, and find out the really deep stuff about each other, that's where those connections really cement.
I agree. I literally, just as you're talking, I'm just kind of going, like, everything that you say, it resonates through me. I love it. And I actually, like, I'm so excited. I can't wait to be 55 then, because I'm loving my life at the moment at 42. Yeah. Like, I'm just not loving it like, oh, you know, white picket fences and everything's pixies and unicorns. Absolutely not. It's just, I'm loving getting to know myself and being okay with what you just said before, with, like, you know, being a people pleaser and always doing everything for everyone else to the detriment of your own sanity and health.
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying just stepping into being me. And I see so many younger people that are just tormented with this, they've got to be a certain way. I'm just like, let go. And sometimes it doesn't come with advice. It doesn't necessarily come with mentorship or coaching. It just comes with maturity.
Growth, experience, learning to deal with the shit that comes your way.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Oh my God, Mary, I could sit here for hours. I'm like,
really, you know, there's lots of stuff that comes our way in life. There's lots and lots of stuff that comes our way, and sometimes, and this was the thing that I had to learn, sometimes the bad stuff
the only
really
sterilized room that they
actually
had
the good stuff.
Was the
it's actually we don't
room,
think
so that was
that
my
we're learning or growing at the time. At the
room.
time, we're like, oh my God, I'm dying, I can't go.
So what happens?
But when we get through it, when we find our way through it, we get out the other side, and we look back and go,
I'm not sure.
I learned a lot from that. You know, like I think back on the various experiences. I've had some.
I know, but you know, both my parents were doctors.
I had some pretty big stuff when I was 11. I had a boy hold two guns at my head and threaten to kill me because he didn't want me being friends with his sister. Because, like I said, I couldn't communicate very well, and she was the only person who was my friend. And he didn't want me being her friend.
Your blood. No wonder you've lived in
he knew that everybody else would not want her to be their friend if I was her friend.
I visited 30 countries as a tourist. So when I can try again.
Oh no, I don't even know. Actually, so here's the really interesting thing. No. So what happened the next day afterwards, because I went home obviously in tears to my mother, who then told the school principal, which is what we did in the 70s when things like that happened.
Like I've been already 3 times.
And the school principal the next day asked us, we're on the street or in the house. Now I was out at the front fence when he came out with those guns, so it happened on the street.
It's a very good
he made me go
lifestyle.
inside the house. Yeah. And so he said it happened in the house.
I have a horror story from Fiji.
And the principal went, well, he says it happened in the house. You say it happened on the street. Where did it happen? And I said, well, I was outside the fence. He came out with the guns and I had to go in the house. Oh, well, you lied. So what that told me was that my voice had no value, that I had no value, and that nobody wanted to know what I had to say.
He went over there and he ended up in a hospital.
What that told me as an 11-year-old, and I carried that forward for a lot of years. And it wasn't spoken about again for 35 years. It wasn't until after when I was having psychological help after I got to the point after having my child that I was in such a mess.
They were very kind
and I was having psychological help, and that's when that came out.
He got taken care of
and I
very well,
hadn't spoken about it in all those years. I had never ever mentioned it.
But I know it's
and after having a whole lot of treatments, I didn't even
So,
know
yeah,
where he was anymore.
when
I
you
know his
hurt
name.
yourself in countries
Didn't know
where
where he
you
was
don't really
anymore,
know
knew
about
nothing else
the
about him.
systems
And
over there,
I
like
went and Googled his
that's
name.
definitely
After
I
I'd had
did
the treatment,
like
and I was
heard
able
a
to
lot of
do that because
stories as well in
before
China.
having the
If
treatment,
you
I
get
wouldn't have
sick,
been up to that.
can
And
be
I
difficult
went
situation.
and Googled his name,
Oh,
and it turned
100%.
out that he
Listen,
had
Dan, thank
been
you so
written
much
up
for
for being a
joining
good
us today.
Samaritan
I am
for something that had
again,
happened
like I've
in his
never met you
life
before, but
when
it was
he was
really
in his
lovely of you to
20s.
share
And
your
I
stories
looked
with
at it
us.
and I thought, now, isn't that
And feel free to share
fascinating? And
links and stuff in the
it
comments
gave me that
and go in
opportunity
and
to look
answer
back
any
and go,
questions
I
now
wonder
or when they
if
pop up
what
after
happened
other people will view
then
this. So thank
actually
you so much for
affected
joining
his
us. We really
trajectory
appreciate you
if
spending
he
some
had
time
been
with us.
going the wrong way.
Thank
And then
you.
realised because of that
Bye-bye.
incident that, you know what, I can't be doing things like this. And it totally turned him around. So I've been able to let it go. I mean, I talk about it because I believe that talking about the things that happen to us allows other people to talk about what happened to them, and it gives you your power back. And that's why I talk about things, not because I'm a victim, but because I just wonder whether that actually made the difference to him. And I'm able to let it go because I can see that he actually turned out to be a good person. He was 11 too. You know, kids do stupid things. It was terribly impactful on me. You know what was really interesting? I wrote about it in a book. I was in a book that was released last September, Voices of the 21st Century, Bold, Brave, Brilliant Women Who Make a Difference. And that was the story that I shared in there. And in that, after that book was released, I thought, it was actually when the book was released, I thought, I really need to talk to my mother about the fact that I've shared this story, because I don't want her thinking that, you know, I blame her, because it wasn't her fault, and it never was. But my mum's the sort of person that's always taken on the blame. So I had a chat with her and I said, hey, Mum, I just need to let you know that I've told that story in a book. And she said, when did that happen? She didn't even remember it. So I was the youngest of 6 kids. And my mother basically didn't sleep for 25 years looking after us all. So, you know, it's understandable that it's probably gone out of her head. But she just went, I didn't even remember that happening. Because to her, it didn't have the same impact as what it had to me. Yeah. And if you can recognize that, you know, other people don't respond the same way as you do because it's your personal journey, and not sort of hold angst about that, and recognize that everybody's got their journey, it really makes a difference to the way that you approach all that stuff. You don't have to carry that angst. You don't have to hold on to it. You don't have to keep it.
Have you ever reached out to that kid since?
No, I'm tempted to. I'm actually tempted. I've thought about it a lot in the last few years. I've thought, I wonder if I should just try and get in touch. But at the same time, I sort of think, look, if he's living his life as a good person and gone on, then it's done its thing. It's done what it has to do.
Yeah, I am actually sitting here and all covered in goosebumps as well. So like, it's just so nice to hear, and we talk about it all the time. People not like choosing that victim path and all the rest of it. And this is what it takes. It takes for you to look outside of this victim mentality where this happened to me and be able to look at it from a different view. It's just like, well, I mean, thankfully nothing awful happened. Thankfully it wasn't next level and nobody got hurt. And it is a little bit different because you've got 2 11-year-old children that are practically on an even playing field. So I think your perspective is absolutely incredible, because a lot of people just would not react that way. They just wouldn't. So, I mean, we've got a comment here where it says they would feel that they wouldn't be able to feel that way.
Yeah. Look, there's been so many things that have happened over the years. And I think, and I'm not for 1 minute thinking about victim blaming. I don't for 1 minute believe in victim blaming. But in everything that we do in life, we have a degree of responsibility. Yeah. And it's not, when people do the wrong thing to us, that's not our responsibility. They did the wrong thing. That's their responsibility. But our responsibility is choosing the way that we respond or react to it. Our responsibility is choosing how we live our life. I always say to people, you know, throughout your life, there is one person, that you have to live with 24/7, and that's yourself.
Yeah.
If you can't live with yourself, then you're never going to be happy.
And you know what? You're literally saying the things that I say, like the worst punishment is when you punish yourself.
Absolutely.
Like it really is. I say it to my son all the time. Mary, we're a little bit over time. Honestly, I wish I could stay here. If I could, I have so many questions. Just got me in the last 5 minutes. I think we might need to do a part 2, people. I really do. And I think that I'm going to talk to you as soon as we get off camera anyway. But thank you so much for being so vulnerable, so open, and so willing to share your story with everyone else. And I mean, that's all we've got, right? Is that we can learn off each other and grow. And that's all we can wish for. Thank you so much for doing this today, Mary. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Bye, darling.